Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Sponsored once again by On Fire Ministries in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio. Today on Patriot Radio, India and Pakistan are at war. Also, there is a massive upsurge in left-wing violence here in the United States as Antifa began its first direct actions here in the U.S. Also, have the Houthis really capitulated? And is the United States about to go to war with Iran? And there's so much more. This is an incredibly packed episode, and our guest today is going to be Sheriff Richard Mack. We're going to be talking about what's going on here in the United States and particularly in light of Antifa, what local law enforcement can do, what you can do to support local law enforcement against this Marxist attempt at revolution. But first, if you are not following Patriot Radio right now on Telegram, patriotradio.us/Telegram, make sure you click on that QR code, go to the site, sign up. You get real-time intelligence, analysis, and you will get breaking news. And right now, it's huge. In fact, I just literally up to the first moments of the introduction posting right now because so much is happening. So, with that said, I think we all need prayer. So, patriotradio.us/prayer. Make sure that you are praying with somebody today, praying with your family today. But if you don't have anybody to pray with, we will pray with you. Click on the QR code or go to the link. And that brings us now to your wisdom from the Word. And there's a couple of verses here that I'm going to read from that predict these times that we're in. And one of them is out of Acts chapter 4, but it's actually quoting a psalm and what David said. Acts chapter 4, verse 25, who by the mouth of your servant David have said, why did the nations rage and the people plot vain things? Wow. Then it says, the kings of the earth took their stand and the rulers were gathered together against the Lord and against his Christ. What we're seeing is a precursor right now as the nations begin to rage. And particularly the Muslim nations are raging. And if you have ever listened to the episodes on Patriot Radio regarding the prophecy in 2nd Esdras, which was contained in the 1611 version of the King James Bible, you will know that the nations that rage refer specifically to Islam. But also, James chapter 4, verse 1 through 2. Where do wars and fights come from among you? Do they not come from your desires for pleasure that war in your members? Some translations, envy. You lust and do not have. You murder and covet and cannot obtain. You fight and war. Yet you do not have because you do not ask. And again, the United States, we have been blessed. But the reality is in the world today, and I want to say this because I've heard some universalism come into the church, especially lately, that somehow we're just going to be and everything's going to be fine. And the reality of the world today is that sometimes, and we don't seek this out, we don't want this, but sometimes evil can only be stopped by the barrel of a gun. And the fact of the matter is that martyrdom is not a goal. Martyrdom is a gift. Persecution is not a goal, it's a fruit. And if evil is attempting to set the stage for World War III, we should come against it. If evil is attempting to set up terrorist attacks inside the United States like October 7th in Israel, then we should come against it. And one of the things that has made America great is that we have put Jesus as king. But also, we have backed it up with the Second Amendment and a robust amount of Americans that are practicing and exercising that right. So in the times that are ahead, there's no fear. But we're Americans. We stand on the line. And we hold the line. And we watch our enemies flee in 100 directions. And as we get to what Antifa did yesterday, that should be the narrative for every Christian. Our enemies flee. We don't give a single inch of ground. And we don't compromise by saying things like, well, the evil's just going to come in. No, we were put on this earth as Christians to resist the devil so he will flee. In Jesus' name, amen. That brings us now to your daily intelligence brief. Coming to us from the globalist front.
The future is built by us. We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
Do we really? No. Globalism is failing. However, some things that we talked about on Patriot Radio are now coming to fruition, and we got to be very careful with this. Elon Musk at the Milken conference, AI will replace bloated, inefficient federal government. There it is. I told you. We talked about this. The reason they're cutting government is because they want to replace some of it with AI. And that may not be exactly the best option. But there it is. We talked about this. The fact of the matter is we all agree that government should be cut massively. But I also agree that we shouldn't put our lives and decisions in the hands of computers. Now, some tasks can be done by AI. There's no question about that. But what it's going to replace, that's where the discussion needs to be right now. Also, Alex Newman, great post here. Listen to the head of the Bank of International Settlements. If you've never heard of this, the Bank of International Settlements is the apex of the neo-feudalist global political and economic regime. Let me put that in common terms. They want to own everything. This guy here describes the key architecture in the worldwide digital gulag they are building to control you. Now, this was detailed in a book. If you've never heard of this book, it was a book written by Carol Quigley called Tragedy and Hope. And as you can see by that guy, he's not eating a lot of crickets. It looks like he's doing pretty well. All right. We have a solution to this, and the solution is decentralization of banking. Getting rid of the whole Federal Reserve System, but more than that, getting rid of the global reserve system and the Bank of International Settlements. Because what they're going to try to do is they're going to start a digital currency there as well. Also, the conclave starts tomorrow. Not everything is as bad as some folks would say. There, you can see by this that it looks like there are more conservatives, even though, and we talked about this with Bill Jasper, even though Francis appointed some people, some of the people he appointed were actually conservatives. So you got that moderately conservative element there. So the odds of a conservative being an actual, let me just put it straight, an actual Christian being elected pope are a little bit higher. Now, it is over the last couple of days coming up that a few names that weren't on the initial list are rising in popularity. Now, one of the people that we have been paying attention to is Cardinal Sarah. Now, here's why Cardinal Sarah stands out. First of all, he is very clearly calling out the immigration issues in Europe. Secondly, here's what he did to a liberal reporter just the other day, it looks like. At least it was posted just the other day. He ignored them when they came up to ask him a question. like that guy already. That brings us now to the China front and this whole Indo-Pac theater. Pakistan and India are officially at war. Pakistani army has opened artillery fire in several sectors. India has likewise opened fire. India struck 9 targets inside of Pakistan that they called terror hubs or terror targets inside of Pakistan. There are multiple blasts inside Indian Kashmir that are being reported right now. And there is dogfighting apparently going on between the two air forces. The 9 terror targets in both Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir were hit by Indian missiles. It included a couple of 3 names I cannot pronounce, but it included a mosque, and I'm going to get to that here in just a second. Pakistan has reportedly started the process of retaliation. Quote, Pakistan's prime minister, quote, Pakistan has every right to respond forcefully to this act of war imposed by India, and a forceful response is being given. There are a whole bunch of old images that are being shown to validate the plane crashes. So be careful what you're watching right now and seeing on social media, because some of those images are years old. The Indian Army reported after striking those terror camps, quote, justice has been served. And Pakistan Army not only is heavily shelling India, but also there is a buildup of armored vehicles on the 2 borders. Now, again, that doesn't necessarily mean further war, but also Pakistani government confirms that 2 mosques were hit by the airstrike. Here is a picture of one of them. And this mosque is run by the terror organization Lashkar-e-Taiba, or LET. And it's not just any old mosque, but also it belongs to a founder and leader of the Islamist terror organization, and I should say jihadi terrorist organization, JEM, which was also hit. You can see with this picture. Now, the Pakistani province of Punjab has declared a state of emergency after those strikes. You can see where Punjab is based on this map. We can bring that up if that's possible. And then you can see next to that, to the south, that is where the Indian Army is occupying. So there is your theater of war. All schools and educational institutions in Pakistan's Punjab province will be closed tomorrow, according to their chief minister. In addition to that, Lieutenant General Ahmed Sharif, the spokesperson for the Pakistani military, told CNN that Pakistan shot down 2 Indian aircraft during the strikes and possibly a third. It appears that 2 of those downed aircraft have been confirmed. The third has not as of this broadcast. Now, the Indian Air Force is using French Rafale fighter jets to strike Pakistan with French Scalp cruise missiles and French AASM hammer bombs. I suspect there's going to be an increase of hostility here, but using Israeli weapons as well. Israel is coming to the support and aid of India. India has reportedly shot down a Pakistani JF-17 fighter in return in the Pampore area of Kashmir after carrying out missile strikes targeting multiple locations. In addition to that, the Indian Army has said, quote, Pakistan again violates the ceasefire agreement by firing artillery into Indian territory. The Indian Army is responding appropriately in a calibrated manner. Heavy artillery fire is confirmed against India by Pakistan. 1 civilian is confirmed dead, probably many more that we don't know as of yet. And in the wake of that, Pakistani officials tell AP that Pakistan has in fact begun launching retaliatory strikes. No further details as of this moment, but we are going to, at the end of the episode, give an update. Pakistan military also said that the Indian attack on Pakistan is a, quote, blatant act of war. India's national security advisor held talks with Marco Rubio, Secretary of State and acting national security advisor of Trump, following the strikes on Pakistan. And Indian PM Modi vows to, quote, stop waters vital to rival Pakistan. This, according to Pakistan, would also be an act of war, and it does look like the Indians have shut off the water. Whew. More to come. But wait, we haven't even talked about China. China's regime is preparing the Chinese people for an economic collapse by urging them to return to farming and other rudimentary lifestyles. Their domestic propaganda on news broadcasts and print media is preparing people for hard times ahead, urging them to set aside individual aspirations to serve the collective Communist Party, as the tone of Deng Xiaoping in the 1970s. But this is as a result of the Trump tariffs, okay? So, and I've got people out there saying opposite things. It's not true. The geostrategic correct analysis, objective analysis here is it is hurting China right now. In addition to that, China's population is undoubtedly smaller than officially reported. There appears to be 5.4 million births in 2020 versus the 12.1 million reported. There is a massive demographic downturn. So if China's economy is going down, if China's demographics are going down, this does make it more likely that they will go to war sooner rather than later. China's 6 largest banks reported a $1 billion profit drop in the first quarter of 2025, marking a decrease of 7.3 billion yuan compared to the same period last year. That is objective facts that show a stalling economy exacerbated by the ongoing tariff war. And then lastly, because of those things, it looks like the U.S. and China are to hold trade talks in Switzerland, according to statements. When we come back from the break, more from the Middle East as the United States prepares for war with Iran.
Attention business owners and entrepreneurs. Patriot TV is launching a brand new TV series showcasing American-made products, and your business could be featured. Whether you sell your products online on Etsy or Shopify and dream of reaching millions of viewers on smart TVs like Samsung, Sony, TCL, and LG, or apps like Roku, Android, and Apple TV, this is your chance. We're searching for US-based businesses offering all types of products and services proudly made in the USA. If you've ever wanted to showcase your products on TV like QVC or the Home Shopping Network, now's your opportunity. Support our American economy, grow your business, and be seen by loyal Patriot viewers across the country. Know someone with a business or have a business yourself? Don't miss out. Contact us at supportingpatriots.com today. Be a guest on this new exciting TV series. Let's put your American-made products in the spotlight.
The new Supporting Patriots show on Patriot TV spotlights great Patriot-owned companies and introduces them to Patriot consumers, encouraging them to buy American-made. If you're an America-loving patriot that owns and operates his or her own business, and you have Made in America products or services, you're the perfect candidate to be interviewed on the Supporting Patriots show. If you'd like to be considered for an interview, email us at supportingpatriots@patriot.tv.
And we're back with the Middle East front. Trump on Iran. Quote, this is really crunch time. I would tell you for Iran and for their country, this is a very important time for Iran. This is the most important time in the history of Iran for Iran, and hope they do what's right. I'd love to see a peace deal, a strong peace, so they cannot have a nuclear weapon. But I would say that this is the single most important period in the history of Iran, which is a long history. We want it to be a great country. Let it be a tremendously successful, rich country that they have everything they need. Their people are incredible. They have vast amounts of oil. We want it to be successful. But then he says this, we don't want to do anything that's going to get in the way of that, but they can't have a nuclear weapon. And if they choose to go a different route, it's going to be a very sad thing. And it's something we don't want to have to do, but we have no choice. They're not going to have a nuclear weapon. They're not going to have a nuclear weapon. So today, Donald Trump also ordered A second pair, under Pete Hegseth, of course, ordered a second pair of B-52H strategic bombers headed to Diego Garcia, which will soon host 6 B-2s and 4 B-52s. I want to tell you what that means. That is enough to level an entire country. Take out all their air defense, take out all of their military installations, and level a country. That is what is being built up right now in Diego Garcia. Make no mistake about it. So we'll see if this weekend, if the talks in Oman restart, or if we're headed to war with Iran. Also, earlier today, the IDF killed Adnan Harb, Hezbollah's logistics commander, in a Badr unit during an airstrike in Lebanon. So they are continuing to do that. In addition to that, the Israelis have expanded operations in Gaza. They're calling up a ton of reserves right now, and it does look like they're going to permanently occupy Gaza. Trump did not comment on that, but the Israelis are making every clear statement that they are going to occupy Gaza. They also, the Israelis, struck the Houthis this morning, destroying the Sana'a International Airport that was run by the Houthis. Following that, the destruction of that airport, that's how we started off the day. If we could bring that last article back up. Donald Trump, while he was meeting with Prime Minister Carney from Canada, said that the U.S. strikes on the Houthis, subordinate to Operation Rough Rider, will cease effective immediately. This follows what the president has called a Houthi capitulation, following the U.S. and Israeli targeting of their fuel storage infrastructure and that international airport and other key targets, including shipping. It was interesting. He said they contacted the United States and said, through a source, and said that they were tired of being bombed and so they wanted peace. And they would stop attacking international shipping. When asked who the source was, President Trump said a really good source. That's all he would say. J.D. Vance laughed. Marco Rubio laughed. It was very interesting. Didn't give who that was. I suspect it might be Iran. However, the Houthi spokesman denied the group will stop attacking Red Sea ships, and the Houthi spokesman spoke to Bloomberg News. So you're getting conflicting reports again coming out of the Middle East. Meanwhile, on the Russia front, air raid alerts now for eastern Ukraine as the Russians launched short-range ballistic missiles against Ukraine while all of this was happening. This followed a large-scale drone attack tonight by Ukraine against Crimea and the Russian capital of Moscow. Also, Poland is facing a, quote, unprecedented attempt by Russia to interfere in its presidential election. The country's digital affairs minister said elections are scheduled for 18 May, so we're going to be watching that very closely. And, quote, during the current presidential elections in Poland, we are facing an unprecedented attempt to interfere in the electoral process from the Russian side. This is being done by spreading disinformation in combination with hybrid attacks on Polish critical infrastructure in order to paralyze the normal functioning of the state, end quote. I got to tell you something. The cyber attacks are real. And what happened in Spain, first they said it was an electromagnetic storm. Then they said, oh, wait, no, this is just green energy policies. Both of those don't account for what actually happened. Very likely it was a cyber attack. And it would have taken the grid down by the frequency threshold. If it had lowered just a little bit more, it would have taken down the whole grid in Europe. So the 14 days of blackout and some of these things that have been out on the internet, there's a truth to this. Some of this is a dry run for what they could try to do to the United States. And the technology allows them inside U.S. infrastructure, both through Chinese hardware components, but also through planted software attacks. North Korea was inside the U.S. power grid. That's a matter of fact. That brings us now to the national front. The United States Supreme Court did the right thing today, allowing the Trump administration to ban troops who identify as transgender while the litigation plays out in a lower court. Thank you, Jesus. 7 transgender men led by plaintiff Emily Schilling, a Navy commander, sued to block Trump administration. Well, lost in the near term. And Secretary of Hegseth said, we're done with that. stuff. General Mike Flynn announces he's ready to return as President Trump's national security advisor. Quote, for over 4 decades, I've dedicated my life to serving this great nation, from the battlefields of Afghanistan and Iraq to the halls of Washington. And then he says, whether in uniform, in government, or as a private citizen, my commitment to American people and America and its people has never wavered. But no matter where I stand, inside or outside the government, I'll keep fighting for America. The America we all cherish. That's my promise. I'm not done yet. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, would be a game changer, putting a wartime general into the space of national security advisor. That would change everything. Please be praying for General Flynn. Canada's PM, right sitting next to President Trump, said Canada's not for sale and it won't be for sale ever. And President Trump looked right at him and said, never say never. As the continued push for the 51st state does not wane. It was interesting. They actually were very cordial toward one another despite the rhetoric over the last few weeks. Now that brings us to the first kinetic, active or direct action by Antifa this year. Comes on the heels, interestingly enough, of an Antifa influencer being arrested and facing federal charges in Tennessee for sex crimes with children. Joseph Felix Brandon is accused of working with other men in an online ring to procure graphic sexual content from children. Now, Antifa has been known to pick up the outliers like this that are pushing for normalization of pedophilia. But last night, things took a very interesting turn. Violent Seattle Antifa members launched an attack on the University of Washington campus, where they took over a building and set a large fire. The militants demanded the university and all relationship with Israel cease, or else they would escalate to violence. That is violence. Now, one of the sad parts that I saw with this was that as Antifa approached Seattle police, they started to back down. We're going to get to that here in a second. But I want you to hear what they said before this. Because while they were watching some of their comrades get arrested, one of the Antifa members said, quote, he loves seeing IDF and American law enforcement get killed, and recalled his favorite violent memories from the 2020 BLM Antifa insurrection. Why is RICO not being applied to these guys? Or why are they not being prosecuted? And is there a connection with a foreign government, aka China, to foment unrest inside the United States of America? That's a great question. But this is definitely not the way to deal with this, letting them take over a building and then doing this. As they came at local law enforcement with Rubbermaid shields, you can see the local law enforcement backing down. That is not the way to deal with them. Now, finally, they were arrested last night and the building was cleared out. But people need to hold their line. Local law enforcement needs to hold the line. And they need to know that local people are supporting them. Because this wasn't the only incident yesterday. As we had talked about on Patriot Radio, May Day is an inflection point. There was also, yesterday, violent Antifa, and other far-left extremists trying to, let's just call them communists, that far-left extremist thing, communists, trying to break inside the building where Riley Gaines was speaking at Portland State University. They were assaulting police and trying to smash the glass. So that was followed today by a major protest due to Mayor Lauren McLean's insistence on illegally flying the Trans Progress flag, about to be underway in Boise, Idaho. Barricades have gone up while protesters on both sides of the flag debate are beginning to gather at Boise City Hall. So listen, the upshot of this is that Marxist violence has begun in the United States of America. They are low, or in some cases, funding has been completely cut off. However, they are highly motivated. So just because they don't have funding doesn't mean they're not going to go out into the streets, because their members are systematically being arrested for certain things. Now, that said, a lot of these guys got out immediately without bail, but they're being arrested with federal charges. Those charges are more serious. And so what's happening is, as they're getting picked off and arrested, they're realizing they're being put in a corner. So that makes their violent activity more likely to ramp up over the next couple of months. And that is the briefing. Remember, the antidote to dependency and socialism is to be a God-fearing, self-reliant, freedom-loving American. And also remember that coming up here, all around the United States, the next location is Miami, Florida. For the May Day events, you can find those at maydayusa.co. And then after that, Houston, Texas on the 18th, and then Seattle on the 24th. Join us for the May Day tour and stand and hold the line for the next generation. When we come back from the break, our guest, Sheriff Richard Mack.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
What do a neurosurgeon, a country artist, and a television and radio host have in common? They all saw the writing on the wall. Big banks sharing your financial information with big government. Join them as owners in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank that protects your privacy, security, and liberty. Invest today at own.oldglorybank.com.
And we're back with our guest today, Sheriff Richard Mack. We've had him on before many times, cspoa.org. Sheriff Mack has been growing support among sheriffs all over the country for Trump's deportation agenda, despite the escalating conflict with local authorities and out-of-control judges. Sheriff Mack, it's great to have you back on Patriot Radio.
Matt! Good to be back with you, my friend.
Well, I mean, you picked the day to be on, I guess, or we picked the day, whatever. It is incredible.
I don't know if this is my computer problem or yours on your end, but I'm freezing and so are you.
Well, it might be. Let's see if we can work through that. But okay. I wanted to get your comment, because you're coming through good on our end. I wanted to get your comment on Antifa taking over a building in Seattle again. There were a whole bunch of arrests that finally happened, but then they were let out without bail within hours. There was an attack down at Portland State University where Riley Gaines was speaking. Now you've got an attack brewing in Boise, Idaho. So, yeah.
Well, you would think that Portland and Seattle would have learned their lessons by now, and letting people out on such easy terms. They're just going to keep doing it. It reinforces the whole mantra of the Democrat Party. Don't go after criminals, and if you do, take it easy on them. They don't really mean to do it, and they don't really mean any harm. And probably the stupidest thing we ever heard on television in the last 10 years was, it's mostly peaceful. It's mostly a peaceful protest, and these big, huge fires are going in the background. That's all typical of the mamsy-pamsy law enforcement that you get from the Democrats, and then they'll blame the Republicans for the lack of law and order. It's gone too crazy, Matt. It's just gone way too crazy. Look, I'm a nice guy. I was a nice cop. I never shot anybody. I never beat anybody up. But when somebody needed to go to jail, they went to jail. And this is also the problem with the judges. The judges that don't put the reasonable amount of bail that fits the crime. And that's why I'm so proud to see that finally we're arresting the real criminals in this country, and that's judges.
Well, I want to get to that here in a second, but you brought up a really good point. You know, we saw J6ers sentenced, huge sentences. And then we see Antifa, who are actually perpetrating an insurrection by creating a riot, lighting fires, occupying buildings, violently coming against the police. You see that happen, and then it's like, well, they're out on bail or they're out with no bail, and it just doesn't seem like anything really of significant impact ever happens to them. What is your message to sheriffs across the country who are maybe feeling some political pressure to not really bring charges forward, or political pressure not to break up these Marxist and communist networks?
Well, the sheriffs have got to stand strong and stay above the fray in this mamsy-pamsy law enforcement that's there. They've got to go after them. And as far as I'm concerned, these sheriffs need to be going and talking to the judges and saying, look, if we're just going to put them in jail and you're going to release them as soon as they get all the paperwork done, that's not going to do us any good. It's not going to do the community any good. And the law enforcement community, the sheriff's office, is not going to be respected when we're out there doing our job and risking our lives to make sure that people are safe. And we need some backup from you judges. And going and having that talk, absolutely, they should. And they need to let the judges know they're not going to put up with this anymore.
Well, that brings us to what you also talked about, and that's the judges. I mean, we have some judges who are clearly, and I think knowingly, acting outside
of course
of the constitutional boundaries that they have. And Congress, there's probably a whole separate episode about how Congress should step in with Article 3. But let's start with the judges. What should be happening with the judges right now? What should people know? Because we haven't seen this kind of judicial activism in a long time.
That's for sure. Judicial activism or judicial criminality and judicial corruption. And, when I saw that mugshot, that shot of Judge Dugan was classic. I mean, all of a sudden she realizes, and she's crying and her face is all wrinkled and she's in the orange jailbird outfit. And she now realizes that what she did was probably stupid and obviously criminal. But Matt, you know this as well as I do. What have the judges been promised and brainwashed into believing? That they have complete immunity and that this is the courtroom is their empire and their kingdom, and they're the kings and the gods of all of this, and nobody can touch them. There are very few checks and balances on judges. And we need local authorities investigating more crimes committed by politicians and by judges. And, they have a lot of immunity where, they blow a case. We can't sue them. There's no ramifications. There's no consequences whatsoever to the horrible things that they do in their courtrooms. They need to get back and trained in the Constitution. The rule of law still applies, and these judges have become activist judges, which means, of course, that they're just playing politics with their position, and that has got to stop. And I believe that criminal investigations against politicians and judges has got to happen, and that's where the sheriffs come in, and that's actually what I've been wanting to talk to you about. we want to have our next big CSPOA event in Washington State.
Awesome. I am looking forward to that. Where do you want to have it?
Well, we've been working with Sheriff Songer to get us a location. And the reason we want to have it there is because that's the one state that is going after sheriffs and the office of sheriff more than any other state in the union.
It is. Well,
so I'm talking about Sheriff Wagner that's getting sued by the AG there.
He is. And there's other things that have been in the offing, and we've heard the rumblings for legislation to effectively remove the office of sheriff, or at least severely neuter it.
Well, look what King County did. The people don't even get to elect their sheriff anymore, and that was stealing the stewardship and the duties of we the people. And Washington State doesn't care. But what we want to know, why we want to have it there, and of course you're going to be one of our speakers, but we want everybody to know that the sheriff does not answer to the governor, he doesn't answer to the AG, and he doesn't answer to the legislature. He answers to the people in his county, and that's it.
That's it. In fact, what happened in King County, I mean, it's a direct attack on federalism. It is.
Right. Oh, yeah. And the duty and stewardship of the people.
Yeah. So with what's happening right now with these judges, so, the abuse of restraining orders and preliminary injunctions, one of the ways, and Trump finally, I was so overjoyed because not many attorneys realize this, you can make them post the bond when those injunctions and restraining orders are given. They have to do it, and it should be something that every single attorney for the United States government anyway should require to help put the brakes on this, because then if they lose later, they lose the bond.
Yeah. Well, and these people that were saying, oh, don't cross that line to go after judges. Crime is crime and criminal is criminal, folks. And if you start making exemptions, are you kidding? I don't care who commits the crime. I don't care. Somebody in my family, my best friend, whoever, I don't care. The president or whoever, I don't care. If you break the law, you should answer for it. And we saw, of course, in the Nixon era, how he got away with all that and the corruption behind all that. We have got to have honorable people in office, and if they commit a crime, they go for it. But the way they went after President Trump, that was so astonishingly political. Everyone knew, even the staunch Democrats admitted that it was political. And it was just a shame that the justice system is being used for such obvious political partisanship. Just absolutely astonishing and disgusting.
When we come back from the break, Sheriff Richard Mack, CSPOA.org. We're going to be talking about Real ID as well. And I'm just so overjoyed that CSPOA is coming to Washington State.
American business owners, you understand the power of TV. If you have a product that you want to sell to millions of like-minded Americans who value quality, hard work, and supporting the red, white, and blue, Supporting Patriots is the perfect place. If you're ready to bring your product to a patriotic audience eager to buy American, then contact us today at supportingpatriots.com and secure your spot on Supporting Patriots. Let's build a stronger economy. When we buy American, we support our future.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle, about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
If I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's showing up more energy, more get up and go, and it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
And we're back with our guest today, Sheriff Richard Mack, CSPOA.org. And you just heard that he's coming to Washington State. We'll have more information on that soon. Sheriff Mack, Real ID has been around. I think as long as you and I have known each other, it's been around. It's going to happen this next year. And then all of a sudden everybody backs off. It's going to happen this year. It's going to back off. Now they said, it's May. It's coming. It's going to happen this May. And then today I see something come out where they're like, well, you just may have to have a few extra steps if you don't have Real ID. Talk about the constitutional problems with Real ID and some of the practical problems as well.
Well, you're right. This has been around a long time. It was a brainchild of the Patriot Act and George W. And now it seems to be pushed by the Trump administration, especially Kristi Noem. And it's a huge mistake. And Kristi's she's just, Secretary Noem, I should say, is just not very, very constitutional. She wasn't in South Dakota, and she was backstabbing the farmers there with the carbonite extraction work. And then there was a judge there who actually issued an order to a farmer that he had to allow these private companies on his property when he said, no, they're not coming on my property. And the judge forced it, and so did the sheriff. And the sheriff called me and said, I think I blew it. Can you come here and do your class? So I did. And the sheriff did blow it, but he said, I'm not going to blow it again. And he said, what I did was wrong. He literally held the property owner, the farmer, Jared Bosley, at bay while these companies dug in his land to do the survey for the carbon extracting. And so it's just one problem after another, and it's just one corruption after another. What we like is to see that they start repenting, like that sheriff did, and he changed it. He did, and our training helped with that. So I just don't trust Kristi. She doesn't have a good record on the Constitution. And the issue is this. What's it for? Why do we need it? And now they're kind of putting this out there that, they don't want, it'll be a lot more difficult for illegal aliens to get registered to vote. No, it's not. If they can get a driver's license, they can get the Real ID. And so most of them have already been getting driver's licenses. And even some sheriffs in Minnesota and other states, California, have been helping them get driver's licenses. So all you need to go get that, because I went and did it, Matt. Look, yeah. I was studying. I checked at all the airports, and every time TSA or anybody else said anything about make sure you get your Real ID in May 7th. And I said, why? What's it for? What's the difference between this Arizona license and the one I should go get? Nobody knew, Matt. Not a single one. And I asked dozens of them, like over 50 different ones. And then I went to get it, and I'm still doing my experiment and my investigation. And the people at the DMV in Arizona didn't have any clue what the difference was, what it was doing. And then I saw Ron Paul give his lecture on the internet. And I had heard that stuff before, but I totally trust Ron, and so do you. And I said, no, not for me, but I still don't have to use it. I have the old license, and I have my passport. And as long as you have a passport, you can use that instead of the Real ID. It's too subversive. It's it goes too far into privacy. And I don't want to be registered. I don't want my person registered to all these national organizations and Interpol and customs at every border. No, I don't want that. And President Trump, this is a mistake, and you should back off of it.
Every person that travels internationally, we brief this. We do missions all over the world, as you know. They will get a passport, by the way, the thicker passport, the bigger book, and they will get a passport card. That is all you really need, and there's no need to go through this practical Real ID when they're already doing facial recognition at airports anyway. They're already doing it right now. Now, whether or not we can have a whole separate show of whether they're actually deleting the picture they're taking as you walk up, but that's really a red herring because they've been taking your picture and scanning your face as you walked into the airport on their cameras. So let's not pretend there's not a facial recognition database for decades, and they have terrorists in there as well. So let's not pretend this is somehow going to help fight terrorism or help with illegal aliens.
Well, but I need to tell you, it violates a huge amount of my Supreme Court case.
It does.
How about if I give you 3 little quotes? Okay. The federal government we held, and this is Justice Scalia talking for the majority of the court in 1997. The federal government we held may not compel the states to enact or enforce a federal regulatory program. Then, over on the next page, the Constitution's conferral upon Congress of not all governmental powers, but only discrete enumerated ones. They don't get to do anything they want. And then finally, in the order of the court, here's Scalia shaking his finger at the federal government, saying this: the federal government may neither issue directives requiring the states to address particular problems, nor command the state's officers or those of their political subdivisions to administer or enforce a federal regulatory program, end quote. They're not our boss. They have to stay within their limited constitutional powers, and the 10th Amendment still reigns supreme between the states and the federal government.
That's right. It still reigns supreme. Sheriff Richard Mack, any closing thoughts on what people can do right now to help support their local law enforcement, but also, and their peace officers, but also, what can they do to support you?
Well, we want them to join our posse so we can train them to work with their sheriff's posse. And Sheriff Songer in Klickitat County is leading the way nationally, and he has a template that he put together for every sheriff's office to create their own posse. We train in that. We have it available on our website. And folks, we really want to come to Washington for this seminar, for this training conference, for the CSPOA. We need to raise the money for that. And we're going to have sheriffs fly in from all over the country and have them straighten out the AG, the governor, and the state legislature, hopefully, and they'll know they're on the wrong side of the law. So make a donation, cspoa.org. Become a member of our posse. Make any donation amount that you want. Please help us help Washington and the rest of the country, obviously. cspoa.org. Become a part of the solution, the holy cause of liberty.
The holy cause of liberty. Sheriff Richard Mack, thank you. CSPOA.org. Really appreciate everything you're doing. Keep up the fight.
Thank you, Matt. Talk to you soon, my friend.
CSPOA.org. If you've never heard of Sheriff Richard Mack, dig into it. He's brought up a ton of different points, but particularly at the heart of this is preserving federalism. That's what is at the heart of this. That there is not just a horizontal check and balance, but there's a vertical check and balance as well, as is laid out in the Prince Mack case. Now, I have been scanning news here for about 20 minutes. It looks like right now everything is calming down on the Indo-Pak border. For now, they are trading artillery strikes. It does look like it is confirmed that India did shoot down at least one Pakistani plane, and that Pakistan shot down at least 2 Indian planes, although the Pakistani minister is at least claiming they shot down 5, but there's no evidence of those other 3, at least as of right now. Also, India, it looks like, is not launching any further strikes at terrorist camps inside Pakistan. So this might be it. But as things kind of go overnight for us here in the United States, we might see something ramping up tomorrow morning. I also want to tell you that the Boise State, I'm covering this right now, monitoring this right now. After the clashes yesterday, Antifa at Portland State University and then at the University of Washington lighting fires and then taking over a building. Let's see here. It looks like nothing more is coming out of Boise at this moment, but check out online our Telegram page. We can put that link up there right now, patriotradio.us/Telegram for real-time intelligence analysis and breaking news for both of those fronts in the United States and over in the Indo-Pac theater. Also, we talked about this last week, that we're coming into very unstable times. Could the United States launch an attack on Iran? Could Israel launch an attack on Iran? Could the war between India and Pakistan continue to escalate? Could China invade Taiwan in the next year? All of these things are very realistic possibilities. But what you can do is take back your freedom. One way that you can do that is at Patriots Buying American. This is a key gap filler for the supply chain. So tariffs are affecting imports, but with Patriots Buying American, you have a vertically integrated supply chain made in America, sourced in America, that's not going to be affected by whether or not a shipment comes in from China. In the sense of, I guess there might be indirect effects, but in the sense of, no, I've got some place that I can order from, and it's not going to get disrupted. It's not going to be subject to tariff wars or anything like that. Patriots Buying American is that gap filler. Also, gold and silver is a great hedge. It's a great place for people's money. And many people have been asking me about this. VerityMetals.com/Patriot Radio. You can convert your retirement account. You can put into gold and silver. And what we love about Verity Metals is he advocates for U.S. denominated coinage, which is an added layer and protection. And also, you're not paying huge premiums. So, VerityMetals.com/Patriot Radio. You've got everything you need. Question is, what are you going to do with that? Because the awakening is here. And I want to thank you for all of you joining us on Patriot Radio today. But it's going to be all of us here locally, especially with Antifa activated. We need to keep up the fight.